Hey guys, welcome back to Just Talking, where I talk at you and you sometimes listen. Today we're doing a tier list of all the rides at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. This will be my third video covering the park, and I'm really grateful for all of the views and support that I've been given over these videos. And I thought I might as well talk about each individual ride because I didn't go into too much detail in my full review of the park overall. So let's get into it with the Nickelodeon Land rides. For the Nickelodeon Land rides, I'll be doing it from the perspective of a family coming to the park as opposed to me because I know it's not meant for my age demographic. And I will put timestamps in for the different categories that I do explore. So, Diego's Rainforest Rescue. I would say for a family ride, it is probably average to boring, but I'm gonna put it boring because it never really it's normally walk on, and you never really see too many people going on it and necessarily like enjoying it. I'd say it's one of the more boring filler rides of it, but it does still have quite a decent capacity throughout the day. So for families going there, it's one of those rides that you can just get on and have a look around and get some aerial views of the park, but that's really the only depth it goes to in my opinion. Sometimes it can have a little queue, but I never really see that. The Krusty Krab Order Up, I would say this is good because it provides a relative height for younger kids. Of course, the only other like drop tower ride at the park is Tango Ice Blast, and that is definitely a massive step up because that's about 135 feet in the air. So it's not exactly a kid's ride, and also it is a hydraulic launch tower as well. And I would say that this does provide a nice entry level sort of thing, and it does normally pick up a queue on this. Especially on busier days, you'll see a queue winding through the small little line that it does have. But it does have like a capacity of about 12, so to say it can generate a queue is pretty decent. And I'd say that kids enjoy it. It's a nice little thrill and nice drop. And I'd say that's all right. Dora's World Voyage, I would say, is average because I have been on this ride, and it's got some little elements to it that are interesting. I know that it used to have things where the elephants would squirt water and different animals would do things and stuff, and some of those effects haven't been in use for a while now. But the thing with this is you do see that it'll pick up quite big queues depending on what time of the day you are in the park. Which is, of course expected. It is Dora, a very popular character, and it features educational aspects, and it takes you around the world, and it shows you some really important and interesting landmarks, and I suppose it's good and educational for kids. But I'd say it's average on really what it shows because it's not the most engaging thing ever. But I'd say based on the cues, I'm going to put it up into average because, it does have that audience and it is quite a popular ride at times. Nickelodeon Streak, I would say, is good because it has a very short run time, and the queue times really do make me not want to put it in great. Because it's a good ride. It's got the elements of thrill, and it's got like the embanked turns and things, and it's a very interesting wooden coaster, especially given its age because it was originally named Roller Coaster when it opened in about the 1930s. And it is quite old as well, and see it has embanked turns and things shows that it was quite a pioneering coaster as well. But I would say the queue times are ridiculous. I once queued up an hour and 3/4 to go on it, which is extortionate. I know it only runs one train, but it is very popular, the ride. Even though it has that very short run time, it only lasts maybe 1 or 2 minutes. And features like 2, 3 main signature drops, and then it has the bunny hops at the end. But I'd say because of its queue time, it just really downs itself. And a lot of the times they take a long time to get people onto the trains. But I'd say it's not the worst coaster ever. It's not as good as Grand National and Big Dipper in my opinion. But it seems to be really popular with younger kids and everyone else who can attend Nickelodeon Land. A lot of adults will still go on it, but it is very popular with families, and it's not necessarily thrilling or like fast to the point where kids would be scared of it and wouldn't want to go on it as like a first or second coaster. I'd say that it's very good. Then you have the Ferry World Taxi Spin. I would say this is similarly good, because it does generate that queue. It has, I believe, two lines of queue, and it normally will fill up to, the point where it will actually be coming out of the queue line around lunchtime, I would say. So if you can get there early morning or towards the end of the day, it'll have a lesser queue. But when it gets around midday, that's when you see peak visitors for Nickelodeon Land, and that's when the ride will start to, like clog up and get that bigger queue. I'd say it's nice and controlled. You just hold the button and it'll take you up, and then when you release it, it'll send you however far down you want to go. If you do press a button, depending on which cab you are in, it will stop you like at whatever point you press a button, and then you can continue at whichever altitude you want. And it can be quite hard to control because you can only really go up and then back down. But it does have the force of gravity. It will push you against the side of the cab, and it's just a fun flat ride. I would say, and it's definitely one to just get on for fun as a little filler while you're waiting for some other queues to go down. Unless of course it is like having that really massive queue, that's a bit of a problem. But it does have quite a big capacity, so I'd say when you do see that bigger queue, it'll probably only take 3 or 4 cycles to go around, and the cycles are only, I think, 3 minutes long, so I think you can really wait in that queue. Rugrats Lost River, I'm gonna say great, because the thing with this is it doesn't have the most amount of theming. It's a nice relaxing boat ride. You sit on it and you go around and minor scenery and you just relax, and then there's this tiny drop, and for whatever reason that gets you soaked. It's a miracle how it gets you that wet, because depending on how many people are in the log, you'll get wetter if there's more people. But I went in with 2, and I'm not like the heaviest person in the world, and my brother isn't either. So when like we went down and we got very wet, it's like, how did that happen? The drop is only maybe about 15 feet, I think. So it's not like it's a major drop or anything, and it's great for kids, but it's got a really weird and great atmosphere to it, because you'll sometimes see people gather around the drop and watch people get wet through, because you'll mainly see the queue for this having like a lot of adults on it, because it's just funny to see how wet people can get. And I just find it a really fun ride. And I'd say it's probably one of those in Nickelodeon Land that could get away with being whatever theming it is. It could literally turn into a milkshake themed one, as in the channel Milkshake for Kids. And everyone would still go on it. It doesn't matter the theming, but that drop for whatever reason soaks you, and it's just a really fun ride. And kids can go on it. It's not got a big drop or anything. It's not scary. It's not got any spooky elements in it or anything, and it hasn't got any sprinkler effects. It never has. And it just gets you nice and wet and has a nice little journey around to get to that point. The Blue Flyer, I would say, is average, because in comparison to Nick Drake, this only does have 2 or 3 hops in it, and it goes about the same height, maybe a little bit more than the Lost River ride. But it holds a value for first coaster or something. Like, it's just a little woody coaster that kids can go on, and it does pick up quite a big queue. Like, you'll see that it'll be like walk on for quite a major amount of time, but once again around midday and maybe like 1-2 o'clock, you will see that the queue will start to fill up until it gets to about 40 minutes max, I would say. But it's a good first coaster. It does have on-ride photos, so you can take pictures home of like your child on the ride and things, so that's a pretty good opportunity there, I would say. The Wonder Pets Big Circus Bounce, I would say this is boring. I don't see a queue for this really ever. It's not really much in operation. It's sort of for if there are like the youngest band of kids that could possibly be there. I would say this is for, because really this is like a downgraded model of the taxi spin, in my opinion, because you do have to be quite a bit taller to go on that than this. And you can't control how much you bounce on that, because it does only go like about 6 feet in the air, I would say. But the taxi spin, you can go as high as you want. And and control that. So I'd say it's boring and it never really picks up queue. And if you are taking kids out, I would say if they can go on this taxi spin, they'll enjoy it more than the circus bounce. But I'm not too sure. It's really up to you. The Backyardigans Pirate Treasure, I'm going to say that's good, because it does, of course, have a bit of, an increased popularity with the Backyardigans being sort of trending on things like TikTok now, but it doesn't have, like, necessarily theme, and it has the centerpiece of the pirate ship with some of the Backyardigans on it and things. There aren't any meet and greets for the characters, but, it is quite fast. It's not like fast, but the up and down elements, how it pushes you to the side of the ship, and it's just fun. Depending on which day you get on it, it'll be faster than the last, and it has a nice good cycle to it of about 2 minutes, so it's not too much to get you dizzy. But it's not too little that you think, oh well, I've just wasted my time waiting for this. But there never really is a queue because it has like a high capacity of I think about 30, 20-ish, and it's good for kids and adults can go on it because it's just something to do, and it goes on a forward cycle for the majority of the ride, and then it stops and everyone tries to get off, and then it starts going backwards. So when it does stop after going forwards, do not try to get off because you'll be a bit startled when it starts sending you the other way. But I think overall it is a really good ride. It's very fun, and you see a lot of people who will go on it multiple times, and it is that fun ride that just is easy going. It's a classic flat ride with the pirate ships, and you'll see it over theme parks, and it's nothing too ambitious, and it's just good. Avatar Airbender, I'm gonna say average because the thing is I've been on Navigator at Flamingo Land and I preferred it to Airbender in my opinion. But that's probably because that's a bit bigger. But some elements of Airbender I do prefer more because the train for Airbender is smaller. It does have a high capacity, but the thing with it is it's more lightweight. So when you're going up and you face into the peak of the track, it does feel like you're actually falling and it's quite fun. But the only thing that puts me off it is, this is just my own personal preferences, towards the end of the cycle, which is about 3-4 minutes, I do start to feel a bit too dizzy and a bit like, oh, I really want to get off. And that's normally when it does stop, so I suppose they have kind of hit a relatively good mark on the cycle time. But it is very fun. It's more for the teens sort of age group because I suppose not many kids will know like stuff about certain animes and things and about Avatar. They won't probably share an interest in it. But I would say that this is actually a very good ride. It's a nice like sort of base thrill ride. It's a nice flat ride that you can find at other parks. And I just think it's average because I've been on it before and things. And it doesn't like blow me out of the park or anything, and sometimes I just do think it is a bit of a dizzying one, but I'm not too sure other people's opinions of it. The Bikini Bottom bus tour, I'm gonna say not pleasurable because the thing is with this one, like you never really, it's not always walk on, and it's not like one of the normal like spinning rides where it'll go like relatively fast. It just, you start on the Bikini Bottom bus and it will take you around in a circle, like just up and down, and I never really see much of a queue for it, and it's not like the Diego's Rescue where it takes you relatively high up and you can see over Nickelodeon Land. This kind of doesn't really show you very much of the land because it's quite small in its height, and its peak height when it goes in its cycle. And I'd say, it's just a bit boring, it's a bit pointless, but, it is a flat ride and it's for kids, and you do sometimes see some quite younger kids enjoying it, so it's really up to, like, how kids feel about it, but I never really see too big of a queue. SpongeBob Splash Bash, I'd say this is average. It's quite fun, when it's warm, you can battle against other people, and there'll be people at the sides who'll be turning on the water jets and spraying you, and it's really good for when it's warm because the water isn't like clap cold, it's actually relatively warm, so you're not like feeling like you've got frostbite, which you can sometimes feel if you don't get the perfect temperature on Lost River. But It's very fun. The only thing is that you do need a certain weather to want to go on it, and also it relies on other people being on it. But when it is in the summer, it doesn't really have a queue because once again it does have that high capacity, and you never really encounter a time where the jets are broken or anything. And it's just a really fun ride. But I would say that it isn't as all round as Lost River because even if you are just feeling a bit hot, you can just go on that, and it's also a funny ride to go on. But this requires, other people to want to go on it as well. So moving on to the dark ride section, we're gonna go straight in with Wallace and Gromit's Thrill-O-Matic. I'm gonna say this is great because I could go round and round on this ride. I prefer it honestly to Goldmine. I thought that Goldmine eventually did start to lack. It was kind of showcasing the same sort of activities with the miners and things, and I didn't enjoy as much. I think the only really important part was the Blue Grotto, where you interacted with the Magnolia Cafe and the Blue Grotto Cafe and River Caves. And I really do like the way it explores all the films from A Close Shave, Amara Love and Death, A Grand Day Out, Curse of the Were-Rabbit. I do really like how it shows them scenes. And I like how they haven't gone too ambitious with any of the animatronics, because when you try to do something good with an animatronic, it can become dated very fast. So keeping it simple means it's always going to be timeless and always going to work, and it's not going to really look outdated because it does emotions to portray the emotions, and you know it does its job. And I do really like it. I like what they've done so far. They've of course decreased the light that's in there, I noticed. So when you do go down the first little slope, which isn't a thrilling drop or anything, there's no like scary bits or anything. They did make it a bit darker, so it felt like I might as well have my eyes closed because it was that saturated, the darkness. But I just think it's really nice. My only critique is at the end. There is a bit where Feathers McGraw is on the train and he comes across the top of like the stairs, and you can see into the next scene because they haven't properly spaced out the scenes, so there's not enough darkness there. And I think they could sort that out by having a more focused like spotlight, I believe. But it's something that I can't really control. But I do really like the ride. I like the theming. I like the merchandise they've brought in for it. I've got the thermal Feathers McGraw bottle, and that serves me well. It keeps my drinks cold, and they really did know what they were doing with this ride. And you can get the green screen pictures outside, and there is also a picture on the ride as well. I think it's all around great. It utilises the soundtrack and the correct audio clips and the important scenes. And it's great for people who do like Wallace and Gromit and people who haven't really seen it. Then the Ghost Train, I'm gonna say this is amazing because the thing is, no, I'm gonna say great because even though I did do a history of it, I would say sometimes the queues can let it down because it normally only runs 14 to 12 trains and it can only fit 2 people on it. So at any given time, there's about 24 people on the ride. But the thing is the cycle's about 2 to 3 minutes, and being this classic ride that is good for families because it's not too scary for like younger kids. And having this great charm and also entertain like this entertaining factor, it does draw quite big crowds. So even though there are 24 people in there, when there's more groups of 2 coming in, it can get quite crowded because they're all at different points, so they're not all going to arrive at the same time and then another 24 get on. They all arrive about maybe 30 seconds to a minute after each other. So it just really depends. The queue times do bring it down a bit, but we can't really do anything for that because if they added any more trains onto it, the queues for the animatronics wouldn't work and they'd wear out more easily. So I'd say they should keep it like that. But I think it's got a really nice charm. A lot of people complain at it not being scary and not having ambitious animatronics, but then you lose its charm and it becomes something that you can only go on once or twice, because if they aimed for it to be scary, then you wouldn't want to go like 3 or 4 times on something that's making you have a heart attack. It's all about having the charm and the amusement, and that's why it draws a crowd, because it's just amusing, it's got charm, it's funny, it's got a full package. The Alice in Wonderland ride, I would similarly say great because this can as well get the same queue times. it does have a smaller, like queue line in it. It only has like two sides to it, and it can queue out of the actual area. Especially with some of the social distancing things at the minute, but I'm not too sure how that's going to go in the future. But I'd say this does have that charm. It has a lot of scent pods in it, so you have that sort of classic nostalgic smell. And the animatronics once again are not ambitious, they're not scary, they're not threatening or anything. And it tells a story well for like the black lit paintings and things, and certain elements of it. Like tell the story just through being there. And golden ticket playing in the background, which has many different stories about why that might be there. It does add that charm, and I don't think it's a poor placement, really. And it just has this incredible charm and things to it, and it's worth the queuing up. And you can have a maximum of 4 people on each train, train car. But they've removed the ones where they had a character in the back at the minute, because sometimes like the capacity needs to be a bit higher, because when there's a character in the car there'll only be 3 people in there, so it really just depends. So I suppose sometimes the queue times can be a bit high and a bit, oh, I don't really know if I want to wait that long for that when I could go on this. But I would say get on this once or twice, because it just has charm, it's relaxing, it's got nice smells in it, and there's nothing to really make you feel dizzy, there's nothing that wants to make you feel uncomfortable in there. It's just, a nice vibe, nice and relaxed, you don't have to focus on anything. You can look any direction and there'll be something there to look at. You can look down even and there'll be something there, I guarantee it. I don't think I've seen everything in that ride, and I've been on it every single year since 2011. So 10 years I've been on that ride, and I still have found new things to look at. Maybe that just shows I'm, like really ignorant, but I don't know. I just absolutely love it. Valhalla, I'm going to say amazing. At the minute, it's undergoing its 2022 refurbishment, because it was delayed last year and also this year. And I just think this ride is, it really has had some research into it. It's about Valhalla, which is the sort of Norse mythology afterlife for Vikings. And it had some really impressive effects when it was open before the refurbishment, such as like the cold and heat rooms where temperatures would skyrocket to 100 degrees or plummet to like sub-zero temperatures, and of course the water fountain where you get your picture taken, which did eventually fall into a little bit of disrepair. The fire effects were great, and some of the water effects were really cool. And they also had the turntable that sent you down to drop backwards. I do really think it was innovative, and it won tons of awards. It won them year after year. And of course for its 20th anniversary it is getting that refurbishment, and I'm really looking forward to see how they update it, because I would like to see them actually put some sort of moving figures in, because there wasn't as many, and I thought there could be some more theming. And I think they could maybe interpret a story if they wanted to. I think they could definitely do that, but I think what they really need to get down is get some reliable effects down, because 2002-ish time, 2000 time, when it was opened, of course the effects aren't going to be as reliable as today's are, because like now the Pleasure Beach rarely encounters a time where there'll be a broken effect. But I do definitely do definitely look forward to seeing how it is now, and hoping that they are going to do something really good with it. Next up is River Caves. I'm going to say amazing, because it doesn't encounter really long wait times. It normally runs quite a good few trains on it, which are just boats, and it takes you through a nice journey through mysterious China with all the emperors and things. It takes you back to the dinosaurs and cave people, where you get to see different sort of plesiosaurs and stuff like that, and triceratops, and you get to see a little cave person tribe. Then you get to go underwater into like what seems to be a coral reef, and you see like a shark and There's holographic effects in there which don't show up too well on cameras, but they are really nice in real life. Then you go into the new Blue Grotto, which doesn't have, all the massive stalactites from the ceiling, but it has a really relaxing soundtrack with the stars lit up on the roof. And I just think that's a really beautiful scene. Then you go into the Egyptian section with Ramesses II, and you see a big temple with all of the traditional statues, and then you go into Angkor Wat, which is a big ancient temple, and you see some monkeys and elephants and different sort of temple statues. I always forget this, but before the Blue Grotto, you do go into like an Aztec Maya area. I always forget that. I don't know why. It's because it's similar to the Angkor Wat bit, but it does offer different like temple sort of vibes to it. And then at the end, it just has that tiny little drop. Because they do have to lower like the track down, just so then you can see the full sort of height of everything. So then it doesn't have to be like all low down, and because some of the structures are quite tall in there. I'm not too sure how going down works, because you are flat for the full ride, so how on earth you get down that deep is a complete mystery to me. But I don't know. It's a really great ride, and it features some classic, like very basic animatronics that just are there because it doesn't need to be something that you have to focus on and analyze, and it'd stress you out, and you can just sit on the boat and just enjoy it and look around at all the different details. And there are some animatronics that like are tucked away, and there are different elements that you won't see unless you look to a different angle, which is why I'd say going it multiple times. You don't get wet on the final drop. I would say it's just a great relaxing ride, and it offers pretty short queue times. Here we have Grand National. I would say this is good because it can break your neck. Well, it can't, but it's a very white knuckle ride. I would say. I really like it. I can sit on it and I can go on it once or twice. I do sometimes suffer from motion sickness, so it depends when I go on it. But that's just because I have an ear problem. But I'd say I do really like this ride. It's a Mobius loop coaster, and it's a woody, and that basically means it goes on one big track and it stops at two stations and appears like you've swapped sides of the track when you haven't. You've actually just completed one half of the circuit. I really enjoy it, but for people who do have back issues or heart issues and basically any physical sort of issue, it's not one for you. They don't really let people on who have those sorts of problems because of your safety. But I'd say I do really enjoy it. You can see some pretty big queues on this one, but I do really enjoy it. But the thing that brings it down sometimes is it can be a bit rough for some people. So if you do go with a certain like group of friends, sometimes they can say I don't want to go on it because it's too rough for me, but I don't find it too rough. I think kids really enjoy it because of how much it throws you around. You get some really great airtime on the bunny hops and all the different jumps it does, and I really enjoy it, but it's up to everyone else. Icon goes straight up to amazing it's the first UK double launch coaster and goes at speeds of about 50ish miles an hour, about the same speed, 50-60 miles an hour I'd say, about the same speed as Velocity, just a little bit lower I think. It does feature a top hat element after the first launch, which makes you feel like you're gonna fly off. It does feature an over-embanked loop, I believe, which is basically where it's a sideways loop. And it has some really great embanked turns that make your legs hang off the side of the train, and it has some really comfortable restraints that mean that you are still in the train, but when you go over these different jumps and things, it feels like you're slipping out, but you're definitely not because it's dug into you, but it feels like you're not. It feels like you're flying. And also, just the way the train structure is great. After the second launch, you have the Immelman loop. And then before said launch, you do have a 0G roll, which was probably one of the first times I'd been upside down because I've had a weird irrational worry about going upside down, but it's really fun. and it's just fast, it's forceful. Last time I went on it, it was so forceful I didn't want to go on it again because it was scary, but it's so much fun. It makes me so happy talking about it, and I have the Icon hoodie. It's just the most brilliant, beautiful ride ever. It's so smooth. It's themed around, like Japan and like the cherry blossoms, and it has some beautiful merch that doesn't flash off the fact that it is Icon and that you've been on it. It's just got the nice title and the cherry blossoms on it, and I do really like the merchandise have come out with it. Revolution, I would say, in my opinion, good. It doesn't really generate the queues it used to, and especially when it was Iron Brew, I think it generated a bit more queues. Because I wasn't, I don't think, alive when it was Iron Brew, but you know, it really is just a ambitious and great ride, and I think it's only one of like 3 or 4 that still exists with this system in where it launches you forward into a loop, it goes up onto another platform, and then it launches you back the other way. It's segmented into 2 parts as a train, so one half is facing forward and the other half is facing back. So you can choose which way you go at which point. Obviously now you can't really pick and choose where you sit, but I think it's an alright ride. It doesn't generate the biggest of queues, so it can at times be walk on. Sometimes getting up to the top of the platform can be a bit of a pain because there is a lot of steps. But I'd say it's a good ride, it's thrilling. It can be a bit dizzying for some people and a bit scary for people who don't like going backwards, but I'd say overall it's a decent ride. Steeplechase, I'm gonna say good. I like it. A lot of people don't because they say it's too rough, but I'd say if you do find it too rough, I'd recommend leaning forward like you're actually riding a horse, because then you're tucked into the train, or the horse, whatever you wanna call it, and then that makes it a bit more enjoyable, and you kind of lean into the turns a bit better when you do that. Because when you sat up, you kind of jolt back a bit and you kind of from forward because you're not streamlining yourself. I would say definitely lean forward a bit. It'll help you a lot. And don't try to act like you're show jumping. Act like you're actually, like at Ascot or something. So I would say this is a good ride. Of course you can calculate which the winning horse is because it's normally the exact same one every single time. And normally they will run 2 or 3 horses per race. Sometimes it's 2, but the maximum is 4 it can run, and 2 people can sit on each horse. So around lunchtime or in the afternoon, the queues can get very big because it is next to the Burger King. And its capacity is relatively low, especially when they're not running every single horse. I don't even think I've ever been on the outside one, which I believe is red. I'm not too sure. Because I don't think that ever really runs. I think it's normally yellow that is the one that's always running guaranteed. But some of them I've never been on because I've never seen them open. But I do really enjoy this ride. It's not thrilling. It's good for kids and families. Of course, some people, especially me, would struggle to hit the height limit. Well, like the minimum height, because I don't grow very fast. But but of course I am, and I have been for a very long time. The height that you can go on steeplechase, and I like it. It's very good. It's good for families. It's got nothing really thrilling on it, but it's just a nice themed ride. The big one, I would say amazing, because the thing is, I think this is a kids coaster. I think I'm insane for saying this. I'd say Icon feels more forceful and intense than the big one. The big one, and I'm a wuss when it comes down to heights. I can't, like do very much with them. But the big one was kind of just like a scenic route. And then when I went down, normally I can't breathe when wind's in my face or when like I'm going down a roller coaster drop or anything. I can't do anything and I have to force a scream out so then I can breathe. But with the big one, I was talking all the way down. I thought it was really fun and enjoyable, and I really liked the over embanked turn that goes around the Noah's Ark area by flying machines. And I like all the like the bits with the helix. Just how it kind of calms itself down throughout the rest of the ride, so you can kind of calm that adrenaline down. My dad did feel a little bit sick after it because you do get a very big dose of adrenaline as you go up the chain lift, because that takes like about a minute to do. And you can be sat there anticipating it. But I think it's quite relaxed. I can do it, like with a straight face. I think it's really fun. It is 235 feet tall, and you do go down all of those 235 feet. But I think it's really fun. I just love it. I think it's great. It's not as scary and intense as people will tell you it is. I think it's really fun, but I don't know if that's just my immunity playing up. But Avalanche, I would say, is great. I'm not going to put it in amazing. It is a classic ride. I love bobsled coasters. They just, for whatever reason, just really entice me. I like, the way the gravity pulls on the train, and how everything feels like 10 times more forceful because the whole train is pulled into the track just by gravity. It does, of course, have upstop wheels still on it, so if anything did go weird, it could still stop itself. But, it's just sliding along, and it's just so much fun. But my only downside with it is if you're with another person, which sometimes it's better to do just so then other people can get on it, and they'll sometimes tell you, like, oh, you can fit in front of this person, like, maybe don't be so selfish, get on it with another person. Don't ever ask you to do with someone who's not in your household or group. But sometimes when you do go down the first drop into the snake, it can really dig into your crotch and hips, and it can be a little bit painful. And if you don't properly force yourself into the person behind you when you're putting the restraint in, it can dig into your rib cage a little bit. But I'd say you can get over the pain, because even when you are riding solo, it is very forceful, and you probably won't feel it too much when you're getting whipped around those turns anyway. But I really do enjoy it. I like the theming of, like Olympic bobsledding. They have their own custom bobsled in the station, and it's themed like I think it's like a Swiss sort of Danish sort of feel, and I do really like it, and I like the little bears that are playing outside. I do think it's a really great ride. I do really like it. I think the force of it never gets old. I don't think it will ever, like change. I don't think my immunity will ever advance enough to get over those, G's that you do experience. The Big Dipper, I'd say, is good, because I've been on it a few times. It does sometimes make me a bit dizzy. They've done a few retracks in the past few seasons, which have made it quite a bit smoother. I do like it. It's got that diversity. It has a nice bridge that goes in front of the Burger King, and also goes like side by side with the bridge that the big one does as well. And I think that's quite a nice, sort of symmetry between them. I think it looks really nice. It does pass through the area where the Pleasure Beach Express goes. So I do think it's a very nice coaster. It's a nice wooden coaster that's relatively old now. And I do like it. I do really like it. But it is a wooden coaster that sometimes can whip me around. I think it's probably, for me, one that I'd rather go on Grand National instead of this one, which is oh God, you can't say that. But I do think that Grand National, when I last went on it, was relatively smooth, but the retracks have made Big quite smooth. I do still love it. I think it's a classic, but also queue times can get really steep. And also last time I went, it randomly decided it was gonna shut, like the staff members, like about half an hour until closing. After I queued for a full 10 minutes, it said, "Okay, we're closing now," and I was like, "Well, you're not gonna tell us what's happened?" And I thought that was really bad staff operation, and sometimes the staff there can be a bit arrogant. In my opinion, I think they need to change the people who operate it, because I could have been on so many different rides in that time. I could have been on the Ghost Train in that time. I could have been on Wallace and Gromit in that time. I could have been in Alice in Wonderland in that time. I managed 3 more rides in that half an hour, but I just thought the operation was so bad, and I've never really liked Big Dipper because of its operation. I think that the people take so long to put people on trains. I think it's ridiculous, but it is a good coaster in itself. But the operation, in my opinion, is the worst. But it's a beautiful roller coaster. I really do like it, and I hope they do manage to get the operation sorted out. Infusion, not pleasurable. This is an opinion that probably people are going to agree on, because it has a lot of inversions and it has the impressive water features in it, but if you don't put your head the right way around, it'll hurt really bad. There's nothing really else for me to say about it. In a base, it's a good inverted coaster with a lot of thrilling inversions, but they need to change the trains or something because it hurts. So yeah. Red Arrows, I'm gonna say boring. It's like I struggle to go upside down on it, and if I do go upside down on it, I'm staying there for like the rest of the ride. It's got the nice boost of speed when you get to where where its stationary position will be, and I like that. It's a good flat ride, but nothing special. Ice Blast, I'm gonna say good because it's a good hydraulic launch tower. It goes very high up. It's very scary. And it's very loud. I do really like the sound of it. I just like when you pull up into the car park really early in the morning, and you'll hear it testing. And it's just like, Boosh. I think that's a beautiful sound. I do. And it has had PlayStation sponsor it. It's had Tango sponsor it, and Tango is really the main sponsor of the park in the soft drinks area because you can get refillable cups. And I think it's a good scary ride. And it's funny to watch people when they get launched up because they totally don't expect it. Some people don't even look at the ride before they go on it and expect it's going to take them to the top and drop them down. Not sure how they didn't realise that it definitely doesn't do that, but oh well. I think it's great. Dodgems I'm not going to do because I don't even think I've been on them. I've seen people go on them. They can be quite popular. They are fun to watch. I haven't been on them though. Derby Racer, I'm going to say great. I go on it every time. It's the champion carousel. It's not like a carousel because you're not like attached to the ceiling. It goes relatively fast. You get wind in your face, and on a hot day, if the queue for the water rides, aka literally just Valhalla and Lost River, then this is the best shot you're gonna get at cooling down fast because the wind in your face is so nice and cool. It's just beautiful. And also, it does have the classic sort of carousel sort of music as well, which I do really like. I just think it's really nice. I just think it's a beautiful ride. And it plays a variety of classical music and also a few pop renditions on it, and it has high capacity. It's a good final ride of the day as well because normally when everything's closing you can just quickly get on it because they do wait a decent amount of time before they start the ride, so then they can get the maximum amount of people on it as possible. And I just really like it for the music, for the way the ride's structured, for how fast it goes. It's just great. I'm not going to review any of these other carousels either. I don't know why they have so many. Or the Alpine Rally, because I haven't really been on it. The Grand Prix, I would say, is average because the queues are ridiculous. They do have quite a lot of cars on it. But for some reason the queues get to about 2 hours on a busy day where there are a lot of families in the park when they do those sort of family discounts. This ride gets massive queues, and it's sometimes nice to just sit and like talk with whoever you're with and like just relax and look at the scenery. But when you have a family day, people will be coming on this ride to like let the kids drive the little cars, but if you do want to relax and there's not big queues, it's a good ride because it's got nice scenery in it. And there is some element of steering the car and it's just chill. I do really like it. But I just think, why not? This is a great ride. Queues sometimes are ridiculous, but what can you do? But I think it's a good ride. It's not like the most entertaining and ambitious ride in the world. It's not got any sort of thrill elements or anything that makes it this woo, come on this ride. But you have the Eddie Stobart ride. Average, I would say. It does sometimes amount some queues. It hasn't been open. I don't think I've seen it open this season or some elements of last. But I'd say, kids really like it. It's Eddie Stobart. You get to go around in trucks around an alpine themed area. It's by Avalanche, and you see some like miniature figures, and you see some like zoo animal figures, and you know, it's entertaining for kids. What can you say about it other than that? If kids enjoy it, fine. And they can pretend they're driving the car and things. And there's a bit for parents in the back. And then there's a little cabin at the front for kids. Flying machines, I would say, are average. No, I'd say they're good. They are very fun. You get the wind in your face, and you know it goes out pretty far. It doesn't make you dizzy, which is the real spectacle of it. Is how I didn't feel dizzy, and you can look anywhere and you still won't feel dizzy, in my opinion. I just find it really fun. It's kind of thrilling. You know, you kind of tilted to the side, and you know you're on like a sort of spaceshipy type of plane. And the only downfall to it is its bigger queues, which, you know, it does have the sort of big winding maze system queue at the top. So you know, it can be a bit of a thing where it's like, how big actually is the queue? Because, you know, the Pleasure Beach don't display queue times because you can see all the queues, but the only one you really can't see is actually the flying machines one, because it's actually literally beneath the ride. It's not on the ground level where you can actually see it. But I do like it. It's a great ride. Pleasure Beach Express, I'm just going amazing. It used to be a transport ride, now it just does one big circuit because the station by the Burger King was put out of operation because the Boulevard Hotel was built. I did a review on both of the hotels, the Big Blue and the Boulevard. That was one of my last videos. And I do like the scenery. It's coming to a little bit of disrepair, but I don't think they need to like replace it. I think they need to paint it because, you know, it's kind of just fun to, you know, like look at the static figures, and you're kind of only really going on the train to talk to, you know, like your party and, you know, like just sit and have a nice relaxing ride. It's good for after you've had your lunch because it has about a 5 minute sort of run time, and you get to go on a nice miniature train. And you know, after those 5-6 minutes, a lot of your lunches will have sold, so you can maybe make your way over to like a dark ride or even a roller coaster if you want to be ambitious. You know, if you do want to get rid of your lunch, then you can head straight over to Icon. But I would say this is a good ride with some decent scenery. It just needs a like a paint. It just needs a little bit of love. And it's very fun. I like it. I just like relaxing sometimes when I'm at the park, especially on the longer days, like when it opens till about 7 o'clock, or when it does have the late night riding days. And it can be nice on a night. If you've ever been to a late night riding bit, sometimes they will open the train till it closes. And if you get on it on a night, Jesus, that thing's spooky. That thing's spooky. The dark tunnel gets even darker, and it's just an experience. And they do have lights there, so don't worry, it's not like pitch black and there's a bunch of like wolves lurking in the dark. I think it's fun. I think it's great. Impossible, I would say is average. It's just like a bunch of mind bending illusions, and you know, then it has the like I don't know if they still have the little illusion ride at the end where, you know, it feels like you're going upside down when it's actually the room that's going upside down instead of you. Like a bit like Hex at Alton Towers. I don't know if they still have that in there. It hasn't been open for maybe the past 1 or 2 seasons, but that's because of current restrictions. That it hasn't really been open because, you know, it's kind of hard to track how many people are in there, and at what point they will be at, because it's kind of like a walk-through attraction and then you get to the ending. Chinese puzzle maze, I'm gonna say boring at the minute. It did used to have some nice fountains and more effects in there and some theming in it, and then it didn't for a very long time. I don't know if they've added it back in and got those effects working. When they do have nice things in there, it's nice. They do things with it at Halloween, and they'll put some like Halloween decorations in there. I do believe that they did a horror maze in there. When it went to Journey to Hell Freak Nights for the 2019 Halloween season, which I believe they'll be doing next year. But I would say that there's definitely a lot of potential in it because you can get relatively lost in it if you don't plan your route. And I almost got lost in it at one point because I thought I was smart and could go ahead of everyone else, and then ended up being completely lost. And trust me, if you go, "Where are you?" and they say, "Here," that voice could be coming from absolutely anywhere. It's quite small. It's not too hard to get lost in it, but it's still a maze. It's still a good maze, and it's got the nice flowers and fountains and plants and things, so it's all right. But I suppose that's the end of my very long review. Why are my videos this long? I don't know how long people watch them for. They probably only watch them for about 30 seconds, but oh well. I'm really grateful for all the views that have come up on my previous reviews and also my history of the ghost train. I'm very thankful for that, and I'll probably do a separate video for a little thank you. If you do like the content, I would recommend giving a sub. I only have 2 subscribers at the minute, big sad. But I'm hoping to acquire some more subscribers. I do on the occasion do some Red Dead content, some other random things I like to talk about, and I will be doing some more theme park content as well, particularly centered around the Pleasure Beach, because I absolutely love this park. It's like my home park, my childhood theme park. It's not even my home park, I don't even live near it, but I live a long way away from it actually, but I do really like it. It's just a lot of fun, and I really do hope that they do the Valhalla refurb really well. And yeah, I'll leave some timestamps. So yeah, as always, like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you want. And this was just talking. Bye bye.